Still having special coverage of the 63rd Independence Anniversary. As usual, we have conversations behind the scene, looking at how we can better have our conversations here with you watching us and then our guests as well. Now we have joining us via Zoom, Kunle Adegoke, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Good morning. Happy Independence Day anniversary. All right, we'll need you to unmute because we can't hear you, Kunle Adegoke. Then I'll quickly introduce our guest in our Abuja studio, Afamo Sigwe, a senior advocate of Nigeria as well. Good morning. Happy Independence Day anniversary as well.
Good morning. Happy Independence anniversary, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's begin with you, Kunle Adegoke. Over the years, since 1960, since we had our independence, Kunle, we have been looking at the matter of the legal framework that has held us together, and that's our Constitution. And there are those who have said that the Constitution is meant to actually give power, is supposed to derive its powers actually from the people. But there are those who have faulted the 1999 Constitution, saying that it does not derive its powers from the people, and so it hasn't actually addressed the challenges that Nigerians have been facing over the years. Help us understand better why this is so.
Thank you very much. The Nigerian entity is one that we all agree is governed by a constitution. The birth of this particular constitution is what is hanging a question mark, or the circumstances of birth of this constitution are hanging a question mark on the genuineness of this constitution in terms of its deriving, the source of its deriving legitimacy. Fundamentally, it claims that we, the people of Nigeria, having resolved, hereby, it claims to be giving the constitution to the people through the resolution of the people themselves. However, we all agree that the constitution was given birth to by a military regime which, before its enactment of the Constitution, had centralized all powers in the center, and to that extent had created more of a unitary system than a federal structure. And when you look at the concentration of powers in terms of devolution of powers as created under Section 4 of the Constitution, which gives birth to the two legislative lists, that is, the exclusive legislative list and the concurrent legislative list, we will all agree that in a situation where we have concentration of powers in the exclusive legislative list, substantially what we have is not a federal structure, but rather more of a unitary structure that is pretending to be a federal constitution. And in this circumstance, it is rather necessary to now review and come to terms with what exactly we have on ground and how we can ensure that there is a balance of powers. We have 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. And substantially, these federating units are dependent on the federal government in terms of their fiscal existence and even much of the powers they exercise when it comes to security and many other issues. And in this kind of a situation, it is not possible for us to say that we have genuinely federating states, we have genuinely federating structures. The imbalance is further created by the way the local government has been run in the country, which makes the local governments now to be appendages of the state governments. And to this extent, the federal structure, when it comes to fiscal question, when it comes to allocation of powers, generally cannot be said to be a genuine federal entity. Now, the allegations, the agitations that we are having have created a lot of crisis, and we now discover that people are agitating for independence of some units, saying that they want self-determination, secession, and what have you. It is the unbalanced structure, the pretending federal structure that we have, that is actually giving birth to all these agitations. By the time more powers are devolved onto the states and the local governments are made to be more independent in terms of their financial existence and the powers they exercise, you will agree with me that much of the agitation will find their way out. Nigeria, as an entity, today, its constitution cannot lay claim to a federal structure in its entirety. Some efforts were made under the last government by way of amendments of the constitution, thereby devolving some powers from the exclusive legislative list to the concurrent legislative lists. And by this, we have correctional centers transferred to the concurrent legislative list. We have the railways transferred to the concurrent legislative list. We equally have a provision or provisions now creating more independence for the judiciary and the state's House of Assembly when it comes to their financial autonomy. We have not been able to critically examine the local government independence, the fiscal structure by which the local governments are being run. And a recent testimony to this is the crisis that is raging between the governor of Ogun State and the local government chairman, Wale Adedayo, by which the local government chairman alleged that the governor was diverting local government allocations. This is a practice that is common in virtually all the states of the federation, and that is why we have it practically impossible, except probably Lagos, because we could see that local governments in Lagos are performing certain wonders like the local government, is it LCDA, that recently these things that show that definitely the financial autonomy of the local government is being attended to much more by Lagos State. In other states of the federation, we have a situation where financial allocations to the local governments are diverted by the governors and being used to finance probably state projects. We even have situations where items that are allocated by the constitution to the local governments are being usurped by state governments through House of Assembly laws, sequel to Section 7 of the Constitution, that create local governments to exist subject to laws made by the House of Assembly. These are critical things that are challenging the structure that we call a federation in Nigeria today.
All right, let's take our conversation to our Abuja studio, where we have Afam Osigwe, a senior advocate of Nigeria, also to talk to us on this constitution, the structure, and the matter that Kunle Adegoke has raised. I'd like for you to also react to that, because it's a matter of concern, even with the conversation we had with our previous guests before you came in. They also spoke to the matters of local government empowerment, so to speak, their autonomy, so to speak, and the fact that several attempts being made to addressing that have been thrown out of the door, and it's seeming like some state governments are not in tandem or not seemingly wanting to align with government's intention at addressing this matter.
Well, I agree with Mr. Adegoke that democracy has not been allowed to thrive at the local government level. And I equally agree with him that even though our constitution is tied a federal system, enthrones a federal system of government, it is in essence more unitarist than federal in essence. In other words, even though we're a federation, more powers are concentrated at the center. There are more powers given to the federal government in the exclusive list, and also shared powers with the states in the concurrent list. But for me, I think the argument should go beyond what structure of government we run to what kind of democratic tenets that those who are elected into office imbibe and apply in their governance. Now, if the Constitution, though it has a unitary mindset, has created let me take the local government, for example, has created a local government which the constitution says shall be run democratically. And then the governors are making it impossible for these local governments to evolve and to do their work. And then are using the joint account set up under the constitution to ensure that funds meant for local governments never really get to them, that the local government exists as an appendage of the state government and at the pleasure of the state governors, then there is something wrong with the way we operate, whatever type of constitution we have. So the type of constitution then is not really the issue, but our willingness to allow democracy to thrive, either at the state, local government, or federal level. Now, while I agree that, and I've indeed opined at different fora, that more power should be devolved to the states, and the federal government should have less things to do with some of the items in the exclusive list, and the states should be allowed to function. I am not unmindful of the fact that even though the various state governments have received so much money from the federation account as their own share of the money, according to the federation, that some of this money have managed to find their way into private pockets. They will not be utilized for the good of the people. So if we have accountability and transparency in the way things are run, if democracies are allowed to thrive, if the judiciary is allowed to have the autonomous and independence that the Constitution has in its present state given to these organs of government, if the executive would function within the parameters set by the Constitution, observe due process of law and the rule of law, and every person is allowed to function the way the Constitution, as flawed as it may appear to be at the moment, but within the people are allowed to function within the parameters set by this Constitution, I think we'll have a better country. And I think the people will be able to benefit from the dividends of democracy. And some of the agitations for true democracy, true federalism, whatever that may mean in our own context, and the people will be able to hold government accountable. But where people act brazenly, disobey court order, where people act as the rule of law means nothing, where they receive the restrictions placed on the exercise of powers by the executive, legislature, or the judiciary, as if some of those restrictions do not count for anything, then we have lack of development. Many countries have evolved over time, but it seems that we keep having this continuous amendment, this continued debate about how our constitution is not really a product of the will of the people. Yes, it was imposed on us by the military, but we have operated these 24 years, and we can't keep complaining about the laws. If there were imperfections in it, we've had adequate opportunity to amend them to make for a democratic setting, to make the nation work for us. Many countries were able to move from third world to first world within 30 years. This is our 63rd independence anniversary. And we are still complaining. It appears that some of the gains recorded during the colonial rules have been rolled back, as if we are regressing. We can't continue bemoaning our fate, condemning the Constitution for its imperfections and inadequacies. And it's time we stop complaining and make the best of what we have. It is time those who are put in positions of authority do the best to make the people feel.
Senior Advocate, let me hold you for a minute. We're going to return to this conversation. We'll take a short break and return with more. Stay with us.